live and online. It's Sleepless with Steve and the Movie Book Club with your host, Steve Pulaski.
Back and better than ever. It is Sleepless with Steve on this Wednesday evening. Good evening. First show of April over here. Starting the show with some laughs over here. It's always nice when right before we're about to go live, Dom cracks a good joke. Unhinged Joe over here. I love it. Had to be there for the green room chats, though. First question, gentlemen. I love talking at you guys, too. Is it snowing by you?
Yep.
Yeah.
I actually just got
There was some flurries.
I just got a text from my friend saying this weather sucks, and sucks is in all caps.
How about you, Joe?
For
So
me,
you're
right
a
now,
little bit more north. Yeah.
when I was driving home, actually, it was bad. I live in around the DuPage County area, so for any of you familiar with that in Illinois, it was like for April snow, like this was annoying. Like it wasn't sticking, but it was just annoying to have on my windshield and constantly just go like this with my. You can't really see my arm, but like this constantly with my wipers.
That's what it is out here. It's been high winds and snow since like midnight last night. It's annoying. And none of it's sticking. None of it's really sticking or anything. That's the thing about April snow is funny. I talked about this on my morning show today. April snow is funny because we all act like we're shocked by it, but it happens every year.
Yeah.
We always get some form of precipitation, some form of snow in the month of April. But I kept saying on the air today, I said the good thing about April snow is it never sticks around. It's going to be in the upper 50s this weekend. It's going to be mid 60s out here in Iowa next week.
Same in Illinois.
Yeah, but I have no idea. Like I was saying even too, I said, I don't know what season we're in technically right now because it was warmer in February than it's been to start April. You know, I mean, 4 days ago, Catherine and I sat outside for like 2 hours on the deck out here. And like now today, it's like, it's miserable. It's just, I always said the Chicago sometimes, I think they still do it. On the front page, they always have a little icon of the weather and they have the high and low temperature. And there's always an adjective that describes the weather for that day. I'd love to be the person that comes up with that because I would be good at it, being a wordsmith over here. Today's would be miserable. I made that joke too when it was like 100 out here last year. I said, if I had the Sun Times weather word of the day on the front page, ghastly. Oppressive. I would have way too much fun with that. But anyway, talk about a niche thing to start the show. We are live, though. Sleepless with Steve. One thing we're talking about today, there really was not much news. I mean, looking at the big headlines, Joker 2 is R-rated. Fucking shocker. If you saw that's a fucking shock. You know, I'm surprised people could write full articles about that. There's that. Dom, you said something earlier. I didn't think there was enough meat on that bone to tackle, but Indiana Jones 5 lost what, 130 million for Disney?
Yeah, and that was mainly because they spent so much money on probably Harrison Ford's face. But it was a lot. It was a lot.
That movie cost way too much to be completely irrelevant.
That's a runaway. Yeah.
Like
I always forget there's an Indiana Jones 5. Like, and I didn't even think that was that bad of a movie. I just forget it exists.
Same here. And the funny thing about that, I remember we brought that up as a point of comparison. We reviewed it on the show, but I remember we brought that up as a point of comparison, even though me and Dom, we didn't like the movie. I think you were out, Joe. We talked about the movie The Creator, and we talked about that movie at length. We didn't like it, but we said, like, this is one of the low-key prettiest movies of the year, like most well-made and accomplished as far as effects go. And that was made for literally a quarter of what, or a third, I think, of what Indiana Jones 5 cost.
Same with the fucking movie we're about to talk about today. Like, I mean, it's shocking that, like, you know, some of these movies that, like, aren't Disney's powerhouses are just way less. I don't know what WB's got going, but
We're going to talk about what I call I think I have a term now. I don't want to say I've coined it. I don't think I really have. But I have a term now for these movies that are complete and total CGI. And it goes into Godzilla Kong. I got to make a statement about the title before we start the review. I'll mention this later on, but I think I have a term now for these movies that are like all out CGI to the point where you don't know, like, scale is irrelevant. You don't really know how big or small anything is because everything is so artificial looking and fake. Which also I messaged you guys last night. Me and Catherine rewatched the movie Noah. I had this weird urge to rewatch that movie. It had nothing to do with Easter. I bought the Blu-ray like 2 weeks ago, and I rewatched that last night. And that movie is underrated. Number one for how good it is, and number two how amazing it looks.
Yeah.
The visuals in that movie hold up incredibly well. I bought the Blu-ray of it specifically. That is a gorgeous fucking motion picture that I didn't appreciate enough on the big screen. But that's a re-review for another day. Tom, how are you? Or, go on, Joe. Joe, how are you doing?
I was gonna say there's an argument. Sorry, there's an argument to be made about art style and how that can help age something compared to just CG and everything. Like I think like something like the Batman, like because it's a comic book movie, but it has a unique look to it, has an art to it, has a style to it, and I think years down the line it'll still look good compared to. And even though I like Marvel movies, but most Marvel movies are just very plain looking movies, and the CGI will probably look outdated at some point. Anyways, how I am doing. School sucks. That is the update of the week from Joe Viso. I had to write a 10-page. I had to write a 20-page paper with a partner. I did 10. He only did 5. I said, where are the other 5? He said, I don't know. And I'm like, oh my God. So that's where I'm at right now. I'm hoping he turns it around because I've done my job and look, I'm having senioritis as well. I don't want to do anything. I don't want to go beyond what I have to do. So he caught me at the wrong time. Like he's just like, oh man, maybe this guy will help me out. No, like this is where I stand. I'm going 10 pages at most, and I cap my limit there, sir. Good day. Other than that, I'm doing all right.
Remind me never to get a master's. Dom, how are you, my friend?
I'm doing okay. A little saddened because, as we were talking about, Steve, um, Vocalo Radio in the city, which is an NBR and NPR affiliated um, radio station that focuses on like urban music, which is a semi-nebulous term, but it showcased a lot of cool young and very local bands and artists in the Chicagoland area. And WBEZ announced that they're letting go of 14 employees, 14 positions, if I'm understanding that right, which I think means 14 people. But they're letting go, which goes to show how understaffed that, because it was across multiple platforms and groups. But yeah, so Vocalo's gone, and there was a really cool moment in time where Vocalo did a feature on our mutual friend Grace Blackford, the artist who now lives in Ohio. And it's just sad. It's like another blow to local journalism, the local music business, and really sucks. And it's stuff like that get you. Steve, I don't know if you want to comment or not on this, but another chance for Sinclair Broadcasting Group to come in and sweep Chicago off of its lovely little feet yet again. Another small window of opportunity, bit by bit. But yeah, it sucks. And yeah, support your local artists, buy their albums if they're a painter or a drawer, artist, I should say. Ask if like you can do like a really small commission. If you know a writer, throw them some coffee money or whatever. Just do something to help people. Mutual aid, direct money, because it's rough out there for folks.
Well said. Well said. Now it sucks because it's like I feel like the arts have never been more popular and more accessible
Bro,
because of
yeah.
because of the fact
you.
that you have like Apple Music, obviously, you have abundance of streaming services, you have access to content that you wouldn't normally have access to, whether it be music, art, literature, or movies or in general. But the downside to that is there's a devaluation in that, in the consumer's mind and in corporations' mind. There's a devaluation of that, where something was maybe more exclusive when you could only see movies at the movie theater or get them pay for them on DVD and Blu-ray, back when music was confined to CDs, and then the very early introduction of like Napster and Apple and iTunes and things like that.
Bandcamp Fridays.
Yes.
More goes to the artist when you buy their albums on Fridays. I've never bought an album that wasn't on Friday. Or, when you go to a show,
Interesting.
just buy their shit, buy their merch. Give the merch to someone else if you don't want it. Just buy it.
There's a reason that like merch too, like you go to concerts and stuff, and merch is like, I mean, this goes for any artist too. This goes for like even bigger artists and stuff. Why their shirts are like $30 and stuff. It's kind of like the concession stand at movie theaters. That's where they make most of their profit. So
Totally.
you might be buying like, you know what I mean? You might be buying a shirt that you could ordinarily get for $14 to $20 and stuff, but the surplus is that just because of how much, especially with concerts and stuff like that, how much has to go to the venue, how much has to go to the people putting on it, the lighting, the technicians, the pyrotechnics, the staff, the security,
So
everything
much. We
like that.
learned this in 2020. We learned
Yeah,
this. Well, I mean, we should have known centuries ago, but we learned this lesson in 2020, and it's still tough out there. And I know it's a top-down thing. We can only do so much, but we can help each other survive in these ever trying times. But just to help a homie out.
absolutely. Very well said there. Again, we only have one topic to talk about today, the title of the movie that's throwing a lot of people off, myself included. First things first with this movie title, okay? Now, first off, what does X signify to you? What does X signify to you? Because
A
normally I see it
collaboration?
in music. Normally I see it in music. But if you were to see like how I think of it, Future, the rapper Future's done this on a few singles. It'll say Future X Gucci Mane. I read that as Future and Gucci Mane. That's how
Hmm.
I've always read X. I've read X as like a stand-in ampersand or something like that. Well, this comes from the mouth of Adam Wingard, the writer director of Godzilla, Kong, the New Empire. The X is silent. I was saying it is Godzilla and Kong, the New Empire. It is Godzilla, Kong, the New Empire. That is the official title of this movie.
Huh.
I needed to clarify that. I had to look that up before I even wrote the damn review. I was like, how do I say this thing? But unlike in the musical landscape where X signifies and, this X is silent. Once you figure that out, or learn it from us over here, you might remember when Godzilla versus Kong came out, the first movie back in 2021, which also feels a lot longer than it should have. That was a movie it was one of the first, right up there with No Way Home. No Way Home was technically, I think, the first, but Godzilla versus Kong was one of the first movies to get people back in the theaters. It was also concurrently released on HBO Max at that time too. And it was one of the first movies that got released. Mortal Kombat was like this as well. I think Mortal Kombat came later technically. But Godzilla versus Kong 2 was one of the first like movies released on HBO Max and in theaters that did extremely well in theaters and kind of beat the whole streaming game. More people elected to watch that movie in theaters than they did at home. And if you remember, there was tangible hype for that movie too. It came off the heels, obviously, of Godzilla, which is when this MonsterVerse started back in 2014 with the Gareth Edwards movie. That was followed up by Kong Skull Island a few years later in 2017. I think 2019 is when Godzilla King of Monsters came out. That I didn't see. That one, admittedly, I didn't watch. But Godzilla versus Kong felt like an almighty pay-per-view event. It really did. From its title to the showdown, it was the first time the characters shared the screen since 1962. And that movie is almost long forgotten except by Godzilla and Kong enthusiasts. But nearly 3 years later, this movie almost comes out, I think, at the worst possible time. And you guys can talk more about this because you've seen it. I did not see Godzilla -1. And the rate that Toho releases movies to streaming and DVD in the United States, I don't know if I'm going to be able to anytime soon. That movie just won a fucking Oscar, and you cannot see it anywhere. Godzilla -1. It's not in theaters. It's not on streaming. It's not on DVD.
They
I think there's
extended it too. The original run, they extended it because it was
Oh, it's my
very
fault.
popular.
It is partly my fault. I'm
No,
not
no, I'm
gonna.
not blaming you, but it's like, yeah, it just won the Oscar. Now's the time. That's like maximum visibility short of your own marketing campaign.
They
Uh,
re-released it even too. Godzilla -1 minus color. They extended the
that's really
release
funny.
and then re-released it again in black and white. And it's almost ironic that after the first Godzilla movie to ever win an Oscar, you can't watch it anywhere now. And I don't know, for a long time, I talked to my cousin, who's a big Godzilla enthusiast. He's seen every movie like about as many times as I've seen Clerks, ostensibly. He's my Godzilla expert. I was texting him over the weekend too because I asked him. I said, "Why isn't minus?" I said, "I'm too lazy to look this up. Why is -1 not streaming anywhere?" And he said it's because it still has to release in like 6 major markets. Iceland being one of them, and there was a couple others that it still has not been released in yet. And Toho will not release it on any home media until it's completed its theatrical run in other countries. So shit, I tell them, I said it might be not be till next year then, is what you're saying then, that we get this thing. Because if it's as popular over there as it was in Japan and the United States, like who the hell knows when we're going to see that thing. But my original point, though, is saying that like this thing comes out probably like the best, worst time. The best time because the Godzilla fever is, I don't think it really ever left, especially with the ongoing MonsterVerse, but it's at an apex now, especially since it just won the Oscar. But a lot of people are claiming that's the best Godzilla, or one of them, one of the best Godzilla movies ever made, especially with the prestige of the Oscar win. And
Mm-hmm.
it's like Japan, and I have not seen it, but knowing what I know about it, and you guys can speak more about it, you can't compare these two movies from what I understand. You really can't. One is completely different, but like
Completely.
I just think it's funny that Japan releases a movie like -1 and we get Godzilla Kong, the New Empire, with a title that is so nebulous to pronounce. What say
I,
you, Joe? Or
yeah.
if you want to time, I'm
No,
calling
no,
I'm
no, no,
calling
no.
the wrong people. You go, Dom. You go,
No,
Dom.
I'm gonna acquiesce. I'm gonna say like I was ready to rip Godzilla Kong to shreds tonight, but then knowing, like, acknowledging that this is a completely different movie. Like, this is not trying to be an allegory for nuclear holocaust, all right, or like mismanagement of government during for the 2011 earthquake in Japan. Like, this is not that.
Pulled the shit out of me.
Yeah, exactly. So it. I will temper expectations if anyone thinks I'm gonna go off tonight. So Joe, go ahead.
Oh, hold on. Okay, I thought I muted my mic. Um, to answer your question, Steve, on the whole thing of like, is this coming out at the worst or best possible time? I will turn it over to my background, um, and you can't really read the tweet, but this tweet, unfortunately, you can't see it, but the tweet says, "These are how these two movies are, and I couldn't be any happier." And it has Godzilla -1 on this side, and right below it is a fine cooked steak with delectable sides and everything. And then Godzilla X Kong, the New Empire, and it's the sloppiest, greasiest, nastiest looking burger, but it looks so juicy and delicious.
That's
Um,
so funny because I'm stepping on you. Sorry.
Go
It's
ahead.
so funny because I literally went to a diner because I went to the city to see it with some friends, the only other Regal in the city, like of two Regals. And we went to the Golden Nugget on Diversey. And I had like literally like a chili cheeseburger with
Yeah.
like beans and shit. And I was just like, this is fucking sloppy as shit. I don't care. That's so fitting.
um, so that to me is the perfect way to describe it if you are a fan of these movies and just Godzilla or Kaiju, Monsterverse, whatever you want to call them, movies in general, if you're just a fan of that stuff. Um, this is, without a doubt, this is like those old 70s, 80s Godzilla movies where he just would go around and smack a bunch of monsters around, destroy scenery. They'd be in rubber suits and everything. It was the stuff I saw on HBO and Stars. My family would ever subscribe to them for The Sopranos and whatever the hell they were watching on Stars at that time too. And I would be up in my room and I would turn on the TV and I had a crappy little like tube TV thing where I had to go up to the TV to change channels. But I would be like, oh my god, Godzilla's gonna be on tonight, and I would flip it through and I would watch Godzilla. I would sit there and not understand a peep of what's going on, but I couldn't wait until I saw that dude put on that rubber suit and fight Ghidorah, Ramadan, all these Ramadan. Hold on, uh,
Okay, hold on.
um, oh my god, Mothra, like all these types of things, dude. Destroya, all that stuff. Um, this movie brought me back to that. And so I will say this. So did Godzilla versus Kong, the one that came before this. But I will say that that movie I think was tighter and had much more focus than this movie does. I I'm just going to straight out and say it. I did like this movie. I might be in the minority here of the three of us. I had fun with it. I think for the first hour, it's like almost it's like a 2-star movie, almost bordering line 2.5 for me. The second hour is where I'm like, this is what I came to see, and it just starts delivering on all full ends. If you're here to see Kong and Godzilla team up, fight stuff, you get that. If you're here to see Kong like actually star in his own movie, you kind of get that throughout parts of the film. I would say actually the strongest parts of this movie are when there's no dialogue, which is not great to say for a movie that's 2 hours long and most of it does have dialogue. It's whenever Kong's on
No,
screen.
I know what you're talking about.
Yeah. Whenever, like, the first 5 minutes of this movie, I was like, damn, I would pay money to just watch this for an hour and a half of just Kong just, figuring out the plot just through, like, visuals and, like, facial features and everything.
Could you imagine a David Attenborough, like, documentary?
Oh, yeah.
But it's, like, serious Kong? I keep interrupting you.
No, you're good. You're good. Even the moments, like, I thought, like, the whole... And this is why I'm wearing this shirt tonight, for example. I thought Baby Kong was going to be this. I thought this is what Baby Kong was going to be. But he actually turned out to have, like, an arc. He actually turned out to be a character. And they actually used him, I think, effectively with Kong. That I was like, you know what? I actually really dug what you did with him. Especially when Kong used him as a weapon, which I thought was hilarious. All the moments with Kong in this movie, I think I'm like, damn, this is honestly what the movie should really focus on. Because... I'm getting the story. I'm able to understand just from no communication between these animals other than facial features and just like them yelling at each other, but just being able to tell like just from where the camera's positioning, from reactions to everybody else, like how it's being told. Even the little bit of Godzilla that we get in this movie, because Godzilla is more of a supporting character in this movie compared to the last movie. Even the little bit of Godzilla, it's cool. It's badass. It's what you're here to see. Him just literally just fight monsters and everything. The bad parts of this movie is literally everything with the humans, man. Down to, and Steve, I saw you use this in a review. I'm going to quote you here. But down to, like, them going on to, like, CGI sets and it reminding me as well of Quantumania. And just being like, holy crap, like, I'm getting flashbacks to that. As much fun as I had with this movie, I can't say that, like, it wasn't all that good. Like, I still had fun with it. I still liked it. But there are some major problems with it. I mean, this has terrible dialogue. It has a boring story. It really doesn't do anything with these human characters. And when you're sitting there watching the movie and you're watching the monsters actually have more interesting stuff going on, you sit there and wonder, is there even a point to even cutting back to the human stuff at all? Because it's ridiculous and stupid, which is crazy to think because... If you go on Apple TV, and I'll pass over to you, Dom, in just a second, because I know the timer started. If you go on Apple TV and you watch Monarch and how much that took itself seriously, they were more of a sci-fi drama. They went to such great detail on how that organization works in a world full of monsters like this. And then you come into this movie, and it's like a Michael Bay Transformers movie with the humans. And it's like, okay, this is... I literally had 2 complete ends of like how you guys are handling the human characters, and I thought I was gonna get more of that in this movie. I still do think you get what you're here to see, and I've been seeing people online like loving this movie. Some people, I've seen a lot of people online say this is the best one of the MonsterVerse, which I don't think so at all. But I won't deny, yeah, I did have fun with this movie, and I do think you get what you see. But Dom, go ahead.
Peer pressure is a hell of a drug. And I'm not referencing to you, gentlemen, fine gentlemen. Like I said, I saw this movie in the city with my 2 dear friends, Jake and Angel. Shout out. They're definitely not watching this, but shout out to them. And I was sandwiched in the center of my 2 friends, Jake on my left, Angel on my right. And when Godzilla is fighting a giant crab monster in Rome, assumingly with the Pope watching, and then Godzilla does the thing where he opens the mouth and then does the nuclear fire breath, and then he takes a nap in the Colosseum. I was like, this is so dumb, but on my left and right, literally doing this shit. Like, yeah, fucking get it. Go get it. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And it was like, okay, this is gonna be this kind of night, isn't it?
That's how my
And
audience was Thursday night the whole way through.
yeah, and it was a city crowd. It wasn't that full, but it was, city people. So city people, what the fuck does that mean? But you know what I mean? It's like it's more like the people were talking, right? And if it was anything else, if I'm watching like fucking Zone of Interest, with that amount of talking, I'm gonna go to the attendant and tell them to shut the hell up. But yeah, I don't care. It's Godzilla Kong. Like, that's what I kept telling myself. Like, it's Godzilla Kong. Like, whatever, dude. Which, am I talking down to this movie? Absolutely. You know who else is talking down to this movie? The writers and directors.
Thank you.
Like,
Yeah.
Freaking Kong gives Godzilla a suplex off of the pyramids of Egypt before they go into a portal to go to Hollow Earth. Like, this is, as I've said before, there are two kinds of Godzillas. There's Godzilla as a menace and Godzilla as a protector. One is Iron Man, and the other one feels like freaking Schindler's List by comparison. And it's like, you got to take it for what it is. I think even Roger Ebert, I need to find the exact thing. We see, like, yeah, at some point, Roger Ebert just started giving Adam Sandler movies like actually decent star ratings, because he was like, this movie sets out exactly what it wants to do, so I can't really rag on it too hard. And they were some of the better Adam Sandler movies for sure. Was it Happy Madison? I don't know.
The Zohan.
But either way, say again.
Yeah, I think it was for the Zohan.
Are you serious?
I'm pretty sure that was the one he did give a positive review.
Yeah.
Really, that one out of all of them?
Oh, I'll do a fact check. You keep going.
That's okay. Thank you. And as the movie, like, did I like the movie? Not too much. And the critiques that Joe had are mine amplified to the nth degree. But like the emotional climax, which scene I'm talking about, between the mom and the daughter, when that happens, when that scene happens at the end, my friend Angel, he was like, and I'm like, bro, what? Okay. Times are tough, man. Times are tough out there. And I'm not gonna shit talk my friend Angel, because he's a very smart person. But because here's the thing, like I said, we went to a diner afterwards and we had some food and we were talking about shit, and I'm not joking. Like, times are actually tough and people are going through some shit right now. Like I said, with Vocalo Radio, with local artists and musicians, and it's like, who am I to shit on this movie for not being an in-depth look of. It's just funny because it's like, that's what Monarch is apparently, and I guess I just need to watch that.
It just really is. It's like, what the hell?
Yeah. So you know what? You get your Hakunas and you get your Matatas. That's not what that means, but that's so dumb. It is what it is. So in that sense, I did compare. Thank you, Joe. I was thinking actively about the very first Michael Bay Transformers movie, and I was thinking, do I like this more or less than Michael Bay's first Transformers? And I think I liked it less. Because there's something special about the way Michael Bay does his stupid, pervy human interaction.
There's at least a flow.
That's charming.
There's at least a flow to that first Transformers movie,
yes.
too. There's a beginning,
there is.
middle, and end. By the way, you don't mess with the Zohan, 3 out of 4 stars. His tagline was, yes, but can hummus defeat kryptonite? Anyways. There's a flow to that. There's really no flow here. Like I said, when you cut back to the humans, the movie comes to a grinding halt. Go on.
Oh my god, dude! Fucking Razzie Award almost for he was in Atlanta too. It's like, how do you
Brian Tyree Henry?
Yeah, it's like, I'm so, like, he was
up for an Oscar 2 years ago for the movie Causeway with Jennifer Lawrence that nobody saw.
Yeah.
And that's a great movie, and he's so failed by the writing here.
100% is. He is shoveled into the clueless black man in an adventure situation, and it's
Which
like,
he might get a Razzie. He really might get a Razzie.
It's like, is he really doing this? Come on. It's like his one-liners were not hitting, and it's like the pause for the laugh for the joke, and like, no, this is what the MCU was struggling with in 2013. Like, you don't do this now.
It's funny as hell, because even though my crowd was cheering whenever like the Godzilla or Kong were doing anything, Man, it was awkward as hell when Brian Tyree Henry will say
Yeah.
something and nobody nobody.
And
laughed.
that's a writing fault, man.
It's
That's
like-
a writing issue.
Before we head into intermission here, I'll just say this though, is that like it was a divisive movie when it came out. Gareth Edwards' Godzilla 10 years ago. It's hard to believe that movie's 10 years old, but it came out in 2014. That was a fairly divisive movie. But even as divisive as it was, the one thing that was really nice and creative about that movie was that if you remember, it mostly kept the camera at the civilian level.
Yeah.
Which was an interesting artistic choice because it really showed off Godzilla's hugeness.
If you go back and watch it, I actually like the movie more now, especially with these later films. It's like, wow, this really gives you a different perspective than these other films do.
And that's one of those movies where you had to like you couldn't see what was going to come with the MonsterVerse, but you almost appreciate it more based on what it did. Whereas Adam Wingard, who's a really good horror director, he's done 2 of these movies. I think a lot of people forget that he did some really good low-key movies like The Guest and You're Next. That were really cool, low-key, lower budget. He worked with Mumblecore director Joe Swanberg, Chicago native too, for many years as well. So Wingard's been a name that's been on my radar for about the last like 10, 12 years. And the thing is, though, with this is you grow to appreciate a movie like Edward's Godzilla more in hindsight, because this movie, the way Wingard shoots this is he shoots everything to match the size of the monsters. So there's no real sense of scale here. And especially when it's taking place in a location like Hollow Earth where everything's artificial, you never really get the sense of just like how big these monsters are, the gravitas. It doesn't feel big because everything feels big. I want to parlay that. We'll time out for this. I'll parlay that into my subsequent thoughts here after a Zoom-sponsored intermission. It is Sleepless with Steve, live on Wednesday. More to say about Godzilla Kong, the New Empire than I thought. We'll be back in about 60 to 90 seconds. Don't go anywhere. Back after a Zoom sponsored intermission, it is Sleepless with Steve live on YouTube talking Godzilla versus Kong. I was making a comment earlier that brought us into break about how Adam Wingard, contrary to Gareth Edwards in the original Godzilla, kind of shoots everything here to like match the hugeness and size of Godzilla, Kong, Hollow Earth, everything like that. So there's no real sense of scale. Joe mentioned it really earlier, and this was the term I was going to use that I said that I know I didn't coin, but I think I'm going to start dropping in my reviews. It's the quantum mania problem, where when everything is artificial, very little holds weight.
It's the
And
Phantom Menace issue as well.
yeah, it really is. Like it's you don't really get a lot of like anything really beyond the surface here, except for, and this is why I've always loved King Kong. One of the pivotal theater experiences for me as a kid was the 2005 King Kong movie by Peter Jackson, which I'd like to rewatch again here very soon. That was a pivotal theater going experience for me. I've always been a diehard Kong fan. That he's always my rooting interest in these movies. Some of and being that this is really a Kong movie, this really is for the most part, for all intents and purposes, a Kong movie. So on that note, I was very satisfied. The stuff that held the most weight for me, like, first off, the plot gets kicked into gear because Kong has a fucking toothache. I can't make that up. And as somebody that's currently, suffering from the after effects of a filling right now, the empathy is off the charts. The empathy is off the damn charts over here. I envy his dental insurance, though. I really do, because that thing got taken care of real quick, man. He didn't have a copay or nothing. That was Slick Rick right there. He's got better dental insurance than 90% of us. But the best, I feel like the best scenes of that, like, show the close-ups of Kong's face and like the pained expressions, the sadness, the loneliness he has in Hollow Earth. And is it just me? And I think it kind of hinted at this with the way he sort of adopts that baby ape in the movie. Did you guys notice, or was it just me, or was it just a colorization effect? There's a little gray in Kong's face, more so than I remember. There's more gray. So. There's a mortality here that I wonder if they're going to explore, and the way they'll get in the rumor now. I don't think there's anything confirmed for what's going to follow this, but the rumor that I've been hearing or reading in a couple different places is that the next movie is going to be called. I don't know if this is the final title, but the next movie is going to be Son of Kong. And I almost wonder if there's a mortality angle here to be explored with Kong.
Are they gonna bring in Godzuki, the son of Godzilla? Because then that's when I'll jump off this bandwagon.
Well, I'm like, I'll be invested in another Kong movie. I really will, even though I'm really lukewarm on this one, though. But the big point I'm trying to make, though, is that I'm a fan of Adam Wingard, and I ended my review of Godzilla versus Kong, I shit you not, 3 years ago by saying, like, here's hoping Wingard goes back to making some really creative and adventurous horror movies. I don't think that's happening anytime soon. But he does, on top of not knowing really what to do with Godzilla here, I feel like I feel like now we got two blockbusters under his belt right now. I don't find his style of these movies that appealing, though. I think it has the same effect as Quantumania, where it's a CGI bath and there's not really much scale here. And I got in this argument with my best friend over here who liked this movie quite a bit and was saying to me, he's like, I said, like, the problem is that studios have really doubled down to the point where it's almost a parody. That the adage that people don't care about human characters in monster movies, that to the point now they're completely useless. And it's a distraction. It's like it's almost like the dialogue's been written by AI. And it's gotten to the point now where it's like, I don't need the backstory of every single character, but the individuals. Part of what makes the brawl more intoxicating and exhilarating is the experience, is the connection you form with the characters, or at least gives you a reason to give a shit about the characters. And this movie completely doesn't do that whatsoever. So there's very little to hang your hat. There's very little, in my opinion, to hang your hat on with this movie, being that you just saw the marquee event between these two characters 3 years ago.
It's so crazy too, because like Alexander Skarsgård with the last movie even said it. In an interview, he said, "You're not here to see me. My character doesn't matter." He's like, "I don't even know why we're doing press junkets for this movie, because it's like nothing I say about like what I experienced as playing my character in this movie does not matter. Like he won this
and
whole
that
thing,
sucks.
and it sucks
Because
yeah.
even Marvel movies, for as much flack as we give them and other people give them, though, there's been some solid performances in Marvel movies. There
Shit,
really
at least
has
in
been.
Quantumania, we could say like Jonathan Majors did put in a good performance. Like even
Yes.
Paul Rudd, during the scenes he shares with him.
Like even some of the lesser effective Marvel movies gave you more to chew on, I think, than this thing.
Yeah, and it's crazy too when it's like you go and you watch again. I keep saying don't compare these movies. I keep seeing it. I keep saying it. Even Dom said it too. But when you go and you look at Shin Godzilla and -1 and the human characters, you actually care about what's happening there. Like you're just like, oh, like I actually want to see how they're gonna actually fix this issue. But here, because you're dealing with Protector Godzilla and Protector Kong, it's like that should just be our characters. Like I don't know why you guys aren't getting this.
I will always appreciate though when some iterations of these Titan movies, when it's a Protector Titan type Titan, people will be like, oh, we evacuated the city, so it's free for the. No, in that final city, it's like 39/11s just happened in that city where they're duking it out.
Yeah.
And like, no, every single step they are taking, at least 50 people just got crushed to death.
And there's no
okay.
way there's no weight behind that either, too. There's a fucking fight scene in Egypt where the pyramids get destroyed and it feels like nothing.
Yeah. And Monarch doesn't shy away from that. Monarch makes people died when these things show up. But people would be.
Oh, there's a scene in like when they're finding the outpost in here, Godzilla, Kong, the New Empire. They find it's like, hey, have some respect. These people had families. These researchers had families. And then later on in the movie, it's just like, yeah, when Godzilla did that really cool like dive into the ocean in Gibraltar, he probably caused a tsunami that killed like 1,000 people. I don't know. It's the weird inconsistency. If there's ever a movie that could have benefited from the Shin Godzilla type, kind of generalization of some human characters, but also they have weight to them because it's taken in such a realistic, serious manner. Where it's like, because if you remember Shin Godzilla, gentlemen, it's like you don't really get that much depth with each of those human characters,
no, you really don't.
But somehow they hit harder because or like they are memorable, and it's like, yeah, there is an aspect to them because they represent something. They represent something in the real.
They're allegorical in a way. There's a humanity behind them, given the stuff that they're discussing.
Because we can relate to the military guy. How like, oh, there's a military guy that's grappling with this. There is a woman here that's a scientist that's grappling. Maybe they act a certain way. Yeah, Joe.
No, I was gonna say, even if their characters aren't that memorable in Shin Godzilla or -1, it's the story that you remember these characters for. It's like, oh my god, these guys have to deal with so much red tape to take care of this problem. Are they going to be able to save their city? And then with -1, it's, dude, like, nobody is going to help Japan. What is Japan going to do? Like, it takes, like, all the citizens to unite together and everything.
America is a character in and of itself, represented by one female character, but also just in the background, you're just constantly seeing like American generals and politicians. And it's like, that's just how it is in Japan, in Japanese geopolitics. And that's such a great allegory. And again, I'm not saying that Godzilla Kong needs to be Shin Godzilla, but with these weak spots in this movie, you can't just excuse it. You can't just wave it away.
No. And again, I hate bringing up Monarch, but it's like, bro, I mean, this is literally in the same universe. It's like,
who's got Apple? Because I need to watch. There you go.
Yeah.
I need your login. Let me see if I have my login still.
With that, like, you have it follows Monarch throughout the whole time. Like, it's like their whole perspective. But they find interesting things to do with them because it's them dealing with, like, okay, how are we gonna, like, restore cities after this? Okay, like, we have been covering up this big secret for years, and this person's trying to uncover it because her father was connected to it. How is that, like, gonna play out? There's so much more interesting stuff there, and the monsters play, like, character to that because the fact that it deals with Monarch. And it's just like, all right, like, you guys got to find a way with these movies to do something similar. Yeah, it sucks because you're not dealing with 8 episodes to tell a grand story where you can fit stuff in like that, where you can bounce between Skull Island in the 60s and then modern day with Godzilla, like how Monarch does, which is really fun. You got to fit this all in 2 hours. I don't know how, but they got to find a better way than just having Brian Tyree. Brian Tyree Henry saying exposition, Rebecca Hall saying exposition, and then Dan Stevens playing some rockin' 80s music. Like, it's just, you gotta find something better than that, man.
It's a checklist movie. It's a checklist movie, and I really don't like it. It's like, hey, Godzilla does a cool thing. Cool. Godzilla does a cool thing here. Then they fight. Cool. Then they fight together. All right. Yeah. And it's like, okay, human moment, human moment, human moment. And it's not, you sense it. Even if, like, we are very hyper aware of it, the three of us, but even, regular Joe Schmo in the theater is gonna feel that. And
Yeah.
even though many of them may be blinded by the really, really, admittedly, very cool fight scenes, very cool fight scenes.
It's still noticeable. My
they're
best
gonna,
friend, who gave this movie an 8 out of 10 on his scale, he said, yeah, the only thing that sucks are the humans. And I'm just like, I mean, that's a pretty big part of the movie, but 8 out of 10.
It is.
Right?
Wouldn't it be cool if those scenes were also really cool? I don't know.
Yeah.
Hey, you know what's really cool for these superhero type movements? Like high level government, like black site shit, which like you could just do that. I don't know.
The one thing I did find charming in this movie, and I don't feel like I feel like, because I've seen 4 of these movies now, I feel like this is probably only the second movie to have as much fun with this as Skull Island, which is still probably my favorite of the MonsterVerse. I know I'm in the
really solid.
Skull Island is such a good movie, and I feel like even in this MonsterVerse, it's underrated. But it gave me some of the musical cues in The New Empire are pretty good. Some of the musical cues in this are really good. I don't know why they don't have more fun with that. Kind of like a Guardians of the Galaxy tonal thing where they have more fun with the musical cues. Because I remember probably the best musical cue of the whole franchise is Run Through the Jungle in Kong Skull Island. It's such an amazing complimentary scene setter here. I loved, and I know like nobody under 50 knows this song or really cares, but I love the Jim Reeves song that opens this movie, Welcome to My World. And then it slowly starts to morph. It starts to get like warbled in its effect as it goes down to Hollow Earth, which I thought was cool. Then you get like some Golden Earring and some Badfinger thrown in here. Loverboy, I think, has a song in this thing too.
Dude, I've been jamming to Twilight Zone on Spotify all week because of this movie.
Yeah, there's some really solid musical cues here that I wish they kind of had more fun with. And in a movie, and it goes back to this, in a movie with such little humanity and regard for really anything, you relish these like fleeting moments of silliness because you're also kind of reminded that this thing doesn't take itself too seriously, which I guess is the saving grace of the whole thing. Yeah. But I think that there's a lot better ways you could spend 2 hours than this movie, too. You could watch the first Godzilla versus Kong, because contrary to what people may think because of my negative review of this movie and stuff, this is the only MonsterVerse movie I've given less than 3 stars, for the record. I've been very kind, I think, to the MonsterVerse, and I have a lot of positive memories of not only the first Godzilla movie, but also, as I've said before, Kong Skull Island. I think that is a very cherishable Kong movie in a lot of different respects, mainly because the setting I feel like is so different than any of these other movies too. If we want to segue into final thoughts, I kind of just set it up for that. Yeah. But this might be where I tap out of the MonsterVerse unless we get another Kong centric follow up. Then I'm all there. But this thing suffers from I think I'm going to start calling the Quantumanium problem, is that when everything is artificial, nothing holds weight. And you really get that here. I mean, we mentioned Brian Tyree Henry a little bit. I don't even think we mentioned the 2 main characters of this thing, Rebecca Hall or Dan Stevens. No. And
they're doing some all right acting, but again, their characters are so it's shallow, and it's unfortunate. It's unfortunate because there's potential. There was potential there. I don't know.
There absolutely was. So for me, I'm probably the least kind of the 3 of us here. My crowd was almost dead silent too when Catherine and I saw this thing. Our crowd was almost dead silent. I don't know what they thought of it, but yeah, it was not the Spirited City people crowd that Dom experienced for sure.
City folk. Them fine city slickers.
Overall, though, it's 2 out of 4 stars for me. What say you, Joe? And then Dom to send us home, not only for Godzilla Kong, I'll never get used to this title, but the show itself. So, Joe, lead us off here.
This is tough. I ran into the same problem I do with Fast and Furious when it comes to these movies sometimes, man. It's just like, I had fun with it, but I gotta acknowledge what's wrong with it, too. And it's just like, as much fun as I had, especially with that second half of this movie, there's a lot to sit through here that is like just making me go, all right, man, like we can really trim this down. We don't have to learn about the Hollow Earth civilization. I don't have to. Why does every movie with a civilization have a temple where you pour water into the center thing and then the water spreads out? Why is that in every movie with a civilization? Like, why? I don't need to see that. I see that in every movie. Like,
I know I mentioned it at the start of the show, but truth be told, there is a scene. You probably don't remember, but there is a scene in Noah of that exact thing happening.
oh Jesus Christ, you're right. There is.
When the whole forest sprouts, there's the exact same scene.
Oh my god. There's probably another scene like that in a previous MonsterVerse movie. I'm just not remembering it. Everything dealing with them is just like, I just don't want to be here. Like, honestly, if this movie was an hour and a half, I think we would have been in a sweet spot where they trimmed down as much as possible with the humans and really kept, because like I said, I really love the monster stuff. I didn't talk about the Scar King so much. The Scar King is a character in itself, and he's got a cool design with his weapon of choice that he has. And I love how they fit in another MonsterVerse monster with him too. I won't spoil who it is, and who else also shows up in this movie, especially after one of the other installments where it's like, oh, they're bringing this monster in, and they get rid of him, and you're like, oh, you're not doing much with them. Okay, gotcha. It was really cool to see that come back. I don't want, again, to spoil that for anybody who hasn't seen it yet. For me, though, like, as much fun as I had and was geeking out over, like, reliving my childhood youth of seeing these monsters fight, especially with all the ones they bring in this one, it's a 2.5 out of 4-star movie for me. It's like, if I had to put this on Rotten Tomatoes, I would still give it a fresh tomato, but it's like barely about to become rotten as well. So 2.5 out of 4 stars.
Send us home, D.
2. All right, look, yeah. I had a good time with my friends. I cannot deny that. I have not used a single one of my Regal membership, like Regal Unlimited points. So it's like, hey Dom, you have 60,000 points. You want to buy us some snacks? I'm like, because I'm using it once a week and never I'm going to a movie once a week and never using them.
Do you get one ticket a week too with that membership?
I think so.
Okay, all right, that's pretty good.
Yeah. Oh yeah. But yeah, it's the. Oh wait, you're talking about like one. Like I can go to a movie ticket?
Yeah.
No, it's I could go to multiple movies in a day.
Oh.
As long as it's not during the runtime of that movie. I could literally go to a movie throughout the day.
Oh, right.
But I can't during, because I could theoretically give my phone to someone else.
I'm wondering how the other member, because I have AMC. I know Steve does too. Anyways, I'm taking time away from your closing thoughts. Sorry.
Nah. It is what it is. But for what it is, we will judge it on those merits. And yes, a severe lack of human development. As my friend Nick, he always tells me, it's like, yeah, the best part of Godzilla really is the human aspect. And here and he hasn't, I don't know if he's seen it or not, but with this movie, this is the complete inverse. We want as little time with the humans as possible. And I don't want that. I do not want that. It is a shame that this movie is something that it's like, yeah, Godzilla Kong, yeah, the suplex from the pyramids in Egypt was awesome, but yeah, just skip the human parts. I want a complete product that I can enjoy and not want to fast forward through. And I fear that the third movie is going to catapult the shark into the stratosphere, because they jumped it with the first movie. Let's be honest, it's Godzilla versus Kong, but. Yeah, this. Look, go watch Godzilla -1 at the very least, and if you're cool with that, you might even like Shin Godzilla. Having said all that, yes, 2 out of 4 stars. Just that extra half star, maybe even a full star, was earned simply because I had a great time with my friends. There you go.
Very solid stuff, gentlemen. Next week, we got Dev Patel's Monkey Man, which is in theaters this weekend. It's under the umbrella. I can already see a lot of confusion because his name's been, used in the text for this movie, the posters, the trailers, and alike. Jordan Peele is a producer of this movie.
It's another Candyman situation.
This is another Candyman situation where where it's under his production company, which I believe is Monkey Paw, if I remember correctly. Yes, this is his production company's movie. He's a producer. He is not a writer. This is Dev Patel's writing and directorial debut, which is exciting in itself too, because Dev Patel has been in many, many movies for the last several years. Most relatively recently, not most recently, I think, but relatively recently, was in one of my favorite films of 2021, The Green Knight. So I'm super excited. I am super excited to see what he does with this movie too. It's at a 95% on Rotten Tomatoes right now too. Yeah. Monkey Man. It's at a 95 on Rotten Tomatoes, so I'm supremely excited to talk about this movie coming up next week on the show, along with the fact that we'll probably touch on too, because it comes out, I believe, this weekend, episode 5 of Quiet on Set, which will probably be our additional news piece. I believe that comes out April 7th on Sunday. Unless it got delayed, but I believe that's the date that it's coming out. So those are our 2 big hits next week on the show. Only a one hitter show today, but I think we got to go pretty elaborate on a movie that questionably deserved it, whether or not. But get out of here before 7:30 too. Nothing wrong with that. But always a great time talking to you, gentlemen. Joe, appreciate all that you do behind the scenes as usual. We will be back next week to review Dev Patel's Monkey Man. Until then, Dominic Guanzon, Joe Viso, and yours truly. This has been Sleepless with Steve.